What's up, y'all? This is a short video about how to clean up your data. So I was looking in some of your assignments and things for the Forces Lab, and I noticed that some of you had some data that's really not going to cooperate when you start to do graphing and things. And so, for example here, this is some data that I stole. And I've already cleaned up the first column here where they had G with the number for the masses. But you'll notice here, like where it has 800 grams, that's not going to graph well, so you would need to change that to just 800, 900, 850, 800, 900, so on and so forth. One thing that's kind of handy is like here where they're all 370. If I put 370 and then I click and then drag this box in the bottom right corner, it's actually just going to copy that same value down. Same thing here, 220, and then I can just drag that down. And then the nice thing is that allows you to do lots of calculations really quickly if you don't want to just keep typing and typing and typing. 220, 220, 220. Another thing is on my side of the data, you'll see here that I've put in a few equations that might help. And so notice I have my mass that's hanging down. I have the force right next to it, which is basically I entered an equation and I put equals, click on this cell. So I'm saying whatever's in this cell times 10, because that would be 10 meters per second squared, to give me a force of 0.5 newtons. Then when I drag that down, it's going to copy that equation down for each cell. And so that you can see that's a quick way to get all of your forces for however much hanging mass you had. Here I did the total mass of my system. You'll notice on my equation here it says B3 plus A $2. So if I scoot over, A2 has my hanging mass. And the reason I put this $sign is because it'll lock it to that cell exactly. So even when I copy and paste this down into my other boxes, all that will change is it'll go to B4, B5, B6, but it always refers back to A2, which is where I have my cart mass, because this is where I'm calculating my total mass of my system. So I want it to do whatever's in this set of cells plus this value to give me the total mass for each of my different runs. One other handy thing is you'll notice here I did like 3 trials, and I've mislabeled these, but that doesn't matter. When I'm finding the average acceleration here, you can enter a macro, which is by selecting average and then dragging your trials. Press enter, and it will run an average for you. And then you can drag that down to get averages for each of your different scenarios. Another way to do that is just type equals and then type the word average, open parentheses, and then you can drag, same thing, close parentheses, press enter, and then you can again drag that down to get this same calculation done. You'll notice that instead of making my graph just based on my large data table up here, I basically copy and pasted the exact values I wanted to graph. So in this case, I was graphing the total applied force, which was here, and then the average acceleration, which is over here. And so you can try to just press insert chart, and that's weird. Let me delete that. Let me just click over here away from everything. So I can add manually the x-axis, which I know I would want acceleration there. And then I can add a series, which is my y-axis, and I can say I want you to do force applied, and then press OK, and change it to a scatter plot. From there, you can go into the customize setting and add different parts, such as a title. So this would be force versus acceleration. And then blah, 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 everything else that you want to add. But you'll see that one advantage of copying and pasting the data is if I copy and paste my force applied and my average accelerations down here, so Control-C is copy, and then click down here. If I paste it, it's going to first have a reference error because those were both based on the equations. But you'll see that I can click right here and change this to values only, and it will just purely paste the numbers. Now, if you do this, note that if I go back and I realize, oh, I actually had a wrong trial here, and this was actually 0.24. If I do that here, you'll notice that it changed my average for me. But if I change it down here somewhere, it's not going to change anything. So because I pasted only the values, it will not reflect any changes I make to my data up here. The other way you can do this is if I delete that, let's say I was copying this again, you can press Control-C to copy and then hold Shift and then press V, and it will just paste the values only. So that's kind of a quick way. And the advantage there is I can just highlight this data and press chart, and it will automatically recognize titles, axes. It knows what's going on each axis, just like I want it. And in this case, you'll see that this is actually the mirror image. So this has acceleration versus force. Whereas on my other one, I actually wanted force versus acceleration. And so you would see that instead of having it like this, I could actually click and drag to move this over, because whatever's in your firstmost column is going to go on your x-axis. So when I do that, you'll see that then we get force applied versus acceleration like we want. So just a couple handy tricks there. If you have issues when you're analyzing your data, go back and look at what you have, and don't be afraid to add extra columns and do calculations within your sheet. That's all you're going to have Wednesday for. So hopefully this is helpful.